Time to turn our attention to matters hurling and the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship final this coming weekend. Tommy Walsh has joined us in studio. Morning, Tommy.
Good morning, Shane.
You were at the roadshow last night, so this is what a lineup this was. We had the hurling pod live, all ticket proceeds, by the way, going to the Dylan Quirk Foundation and Focus Ireland as well, with Boy Gosh Energy, proud sponsors of the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. So it was at the Boy Gosh Energy Theatre. You had yourself, we had Kieran Carey, we had James Scahill and Paul Murphy, of course, Will O'Callaghan presenting. What a lineup. Bit of crack, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and big Joe Canning.
Joe
it was
Canning,
great
of course,
fun.
sorry.
It was so much fun and so much hurling talk, just reminds you of the great times you've had, I suppose, because you're reminiscing on times gone past.
Yes.
And whatever about the medals, just the kind of laughing and joking really is probably what you remember just as much, and such a vital part of it. And a lot of that was brought up last night.
I can imagine. I was in Kilkenny the night before, or yesterday night, or the night before last, and I was driving through. I was thinking of you, Tullaroan on the signs. I was driving from Kilkenny to Murrow in Limerick, and I had such an unbelievable experience in Kilkenny across the 24 hours I was there. It was in Langton's, and I was chatting to Owen Larkin, but the best experience I had, Eddie Kerr came in and he was chatting in Langton's, and I couldn't believe, just Eddie Kerr is such a legend, obviously before my time, but the name precedes him obviously in the videos you see of the man.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Well, sure, listen, I was looking and listening to a few of them podcasts you had, Shane. You probably couldn't have got a better lineup, in fairness. Kerr, he's up there with the Nicky Rackards and Christy Rings, and Jimmy Doyle is just an absolute hero to say my father's generation that would have seen him.
Yes.
The way we now look at Henry and TJ, I say Keane Lynch and these lads, Kerr was their man,
big time.
And before that, obviously you had Nicky Rackard and Christy Ring and so on, but that's what you were dealing with the other day. They were royalty.
We were talking, even I was with Fran Larkin and Joe Hennessy down at the Village pitch, and we did a bit of an interview there, and Fran Larkin is some man, 5'4" I think he is, and I couldn't stop laughing at one point because he started talking about how the game needs more hurleys broke or hurls broke. He says back in the day he used to have hurls broke over lads' legs and whatever, and it was brilliant, but now if there's a hurl broke, referee straight away
they're probably just better quality now. It's not as if they're not going in as hard.
But Joe Hennessy made the point as well that the paying public, they don't want violence, but they wouldn't mind a couple of hurls been broken over the course of the 70s. 75 minutes.
There wasn't as many cameras back then either, or podcasts to talk about it. If you hit a belt in February or even in a Leinster final, it might be seen. Because the only matches were shown that time were kind of All Ireland finals. When I was watching, say in the early 90s, was All Ireland finals and All Ireland semi-finals. So I suppose with the coverage and you're probably trying to set an example for the young people, because young people will do what they see on telly and they're here, so they probably had to tidy it up a small bit. But Joe Hennessy was an incredible hurler as well, wing back, corner back, the old days of the over 40s, the Masters hurling. My father played in that. I'm not sure when it was, probably the mid 90s or late 90s, and Daddy was on it, Joe Hennessy was on it, Eddie Kerr was manager. It was just, and Joe Hennessy was as good over 40s as he was when he was hurling himself in the 80s.
He played Masters handball up until
He won an All-Ireland final there only, I'd say, a couple of months ago. Himself and Johnny Brennan there from Muckalee, because my own fella, a few of us from Tullaroan go in play handball inside in O'Loughlin's. You know, they're great in there to the young fellas, but always just before our slot on a Thursday night, Joe Hennessy and Johnny Brennan are in there. I don't want to give away their ages, but they're not 21 or 22, and
no.
You know, they won an All-Ireland final, yeah. So it just goes to show, like, you're only as young as you feel. And but Joe is, you probably got that, he's charismatic character.
He's a character.
You know,
yeah.
he's gone in as a selector with Brian Cody now with the Village this year. So Brian has gone in as manager, and Joe, they're only out in Tullaroan there for a few weeks gone. Sure, what better role models do you want when you look out to the sideline?
Jeez, I didn't know that. Wow.
Jesus, It's not a bad lineup, management lineup, is it?
You'd take that.
For club level.
And then Fan's not a selector, but he kind of is as well.
Yeah. He's the kind of guy around the club. He's just floating around.
He's floating around. Never misses a match.
No,
whether it's under 12 hurling or under 13 in Kilkenny, or under 11 or senior tournaments or camogie. Like Philly's son would have a lot of daughters involved there in the camogie now as well, and they're heavily involved there. But Fan is like Mr. Village.
Because we were leaving the James Stephens facilities, and there was a young lad pucking around by himself, and Joe was in. He says, Shane, you'll be interviewing this young lad, I don't know his name, in a few years, and he was just one of the, I think he was maybe a minor or 21 maybe player, 20s player, but he was getting ready to play Ballygunner, I think, in some match yesterday evening and for the club, and Joe was shouting over at fan when they were leaving, saying, "Oh, well, that match is at whatever time," and fans like, "Oh, I might call down." No one rightly from his voice he was going down. You know, the man clearly lives and breathes it. Like, fan reminds me. I never saw Fan playing live, but I'd say he was a similar type of player to yourself. I know Fan was a cornerback, but like feisty.
He was, and he had great battles with Ray Cummins. Ray Cummins was on the last team of the century, and like Fan, like Ray Cummins, I don't know how Ray Cummins was, probably 6'2" or 6'3", and you saw Fan, but Fan would give it as good as he got. But it was a different game back then. Like, you know, reading the game was huge, because the ball going in out to a full forward, like, it's so measured. But back then you got the ball in the backs, and probably in that time it was ground hurling, so it was just get out of my area anyway. That was the motto. So when it came down, Fan was brilliant at reading the game. You know, he'd be out in front, he'd be gone before the ball would be struck, because he'd know from years and years of watching matches and playing matches. And that's the whole, I always call it the Slumdog Millionaire effect. Like, it's not from studying, it's not from learning, it's just from being there and experiencing it from a young age. And it just, at that moment in time, it comes into your head and off you go. You know where the ball is going to be.
I was up in Martin Fogerty's house as well, like just outside Castlecomer, and there's a man with a brain for the game. Like, just he would have been selector over yourselves for that era. I think 6 All-Irelands in that era as well. Like, amazing.
Yeah, and he started off probably our age, say myself and Jackie and JJ and Conor Phelan, Brian Dowland, the Kilkenny Camogie manager. Like, there was so much of us that went on play senior, starting Martin Fogerty, Mick Dempsey, and he was such a, like, Martin Fogerty was talking out for his club, I'd say, until a couple of years ago as well.
Right.
I was there on the sideline. He used to have a black Cooper helmet. Now, this is when you didn't have to have a face guard. He'd be standing on the sideline with his Comer tracksuit. You know, that's how much he loves the game, and you know what he has done. But I would remember Martin was, as you know, he's a character.
Yeah.
And he's just able to get you to buy into the whole system and the belief and the game and the team and the panel. But say, when you wouldn't know him, would you be worried that, listen, is he maybe a bit of a joker and a bit but when he's involved,
serious,
he's held through both.
Yeah.
And our first year involved, like, we never went at an underage, our crop, and he brought us in under 21, then became under 21 manager. I don't know what he managed before that, and we had a great year, and Mick Dempsey was trainer. But the following year, then he sent out a text message, listen, meeting around January, I suppose, meeting in, I think it was the Spring Hill that time, and hardly anyone texted him back, and he saw that as us getting complacent. He said, last year I text back within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Now only maybe 10 of the whatever panel text back within a certain time frame.
Right.
And he was just sending out a message. Yeah. So I'm sure the next text message you look for back would be
That's interesting to look at it like that. Yeah. Like, even at club level, the managers are always like, right, get back in the WhatsApp straight away, and if players aren't, that probably does send a message of
100%.
Yeah, your head's not clued in.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were talking about Brian Dowling, well, obviously just mentioned there, but we were talking to him last week, obviously stepping down as the Kilkenny Camogie manager, and he mentioned about you. I don't know if you saw it. He just said that when you're on the pitch and say he came on and he was marking you or playing against you, you would be like, don't talk to me now, I'll talk to you after the game. And that's the type of player you were. I mean, Shane, we're just having that discussion now. What would he like? He says he's a talker. I'm like, if someone comes on and tries to talk to me, I like, that's my worst nightmare.
You two are similar then.
But you don't want to be, because I suppose your head, you know, someone starts talking to you, like, how do you, with the ball's about to come in, like, how, you know, when do you stop talking? Because that's probably, I didn't see you playing football now, Ashton, yet, but I'm sure it's part of your game too. But like, the most important part of hurling is the 4 or 5 seconds before the ball comes down. And if you're chatting away to Dowell in the corner, it was probably a psychology part from him. He talk away to you, but he was probably looking at the ball out in front, because he had a great career as well. Like, I was best friends with Brian through school. Like, he's from all Auckland's, and we're both Arsenal supporters as well for our sins, and we grew up during Dean Wright, George Graham era, Toddy Adams, Ray Parler, and so we met each other in Kieran's, and that time, and that was the beauty of Kieran's. You see the All-Ireland victories and the Leinster victories of the college, and you think it comes from just the say outside in the clubs and that, but but every break in lunchtime we were out either playing wall ball for an hour or playing matches. And we transferred. It was Brian and used to play with Conor O'Grady, and there was a couple down in Fennessy's Field, and we were all playing wall ball, and Cha Fitzpatrick was the wizard at. When we were in third or fourth year, Cha came in and no one could beat him. He was just
what are the rules? How did you win at wall ball?
So wall ball basically can be played between two. You need two players, or you can play up to as many players as the size of the wall ball alley, I suppose. So the ball comes down. The game we played was majorly 3 hops, 3 bounces. So you got 3 hops on your boss, and then 3 bounces on the ground, and you hit it back. Now if you could do it in 1 or 2, all the better, but the faster or lower you could hit it off the wall or hit at the angles depending on the alley, you're brilliant at, and that's why Cha was so good. He had a brilliant head and he was a brilliant competitor, so probably the ultimate wall ball player.
It's basically handball alley.
Oh, it's handball alley.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if it bounces 4 times, you're
bounce 4 times, or if you have 4 times on the hurl, you're gone. Or if it rolls.
Right.
So if you get the angle on it on the wall and it rolled across, so you're beating Docket then straight away.
It's all about angles. You're basically using Pythagoras' theorem there to play.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to hit it as low on the wall as possible for it to bounce back.
Absolutely. But if your man is up near the wall, you're trying to hit it higher.
Yeah.
So and you have to judge, because you have big alleys and small, because there was 3 walls on some of them. If you're lucky enough, then down the Closh you had maybe 4 walls, or we didn't play over in the butts or anything like that, but often played in there, but not with the school, obviously, but and then Brian and Conor O'Grady and a few of them lads, they transferred it in. We went playing matches, so that was 9 pints in or whatever, and so it's just you're playing training sessions every day, and
good for fitness as well, and just even
match
the hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Brian, so you would have hated the likes of that. A good mate of yours like Brian coming over and chatting about the night out you were going to have later on, and that sort of thing. Like you're just thinking, just go away from about me, just concentrate
I'll
on the
talk
match.
to you after. Yeah.
But if I was Brian obviously knew you very well. If I was someone that knew you very well and I was going over to market, that's exactly what I'd do. You'd want to talk to you then, because you'd know that you hated it.
Yeah, well, listen to it, but you cut off straight away, so there's no hating it. I didn't
You can't stop a man from talking. You can tell him to shut up.
I could stop listening.
Yeah. Well, that's
Did that
true.
ever really happen at county level?
County level,
Maybe it's more like Shane said, like a psychology thing where they're trying to get in the head.
yeah, well, one time it happened to me recently enough. We're playing the Village, James Stevens again, and my godson plays for them,
right?
Shane O'Donoghue, and he's fiery, and he's a good hurler. And
relation to yours would be fiery.
I'll say my grandfather, you would have heard a lot listening to your podcast on Paddy Grace the other day. So Paddy's my grandfather, you mean Mammy's daddy, and Shane O'Donoghue's mother, Sandra. So we're first cousins.
Yeah.
So Paddy Grace would be Shane O'Donoghue's great grandfather.
Right.
But Sandra would have been the oldest of our cousins, right? Really the family tree. So she became my godmother.
Okay.
So then when Sandra had Shane, I was the godfather,
Yeah.
But Shane is, I don't know what age Shane is now, probably mid-20s.
Yes.
And so I was going to play again, so I was full forward to come to the end, and I said, hey, listen, I'll talk to you after. I didn't know, did he understand the way? So I said, listen, I'll talk to you after the game. He looked at me like this, like he's going to kill me. He was not there for talking either.
Right.
So that was 2 lads just knew each other. But
it's in the blood. So you didn't even have to say anything to him.
I didn't have to say it. I said, even after I said, I shouldn't have said that.
You
want to talk to you
he was ready, and he was giving me no orders.
That is brilliant. We should get into the match, I guess, tomorrow or on Sunday. So, even from chatting to people in Kilkenny the last day or two, there's an air of confidence that maybe a level above the confidence of last year's final. I feel like maybe it's because Limerick have been shown to maybe not be the Limerick team that they were. I think before the semi-final they hadn't won a game by more than 2 points. They even lost to Clare earlier in the year as well, so they're not infallible, this Limerick team, and maybe that leads to the confidence.
Yeah, well, they'll have to go very well, they'll have to go really, I don't know what the odds in the bookies are at, but I think I heard Joe talking about the other day, it's probably not good. And the big danger, I suppose, for Kilkenny is that Limerick they're probably over their bad patch. in Munster they were stumbling along, but after 25 minutes against Galway they worked it out and they were just incredible. The biggest thing with that Limerick team is they've so many stars, just really top class, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 stars. You hold down one of them, like, you know, Seamus Flanagan was quite enough the last day. Galan is kind of the man at the moment. You hold down Galan, suddenly Flanagan is incredible. Like Gerard Hegarty's, you know, exploits in All-Ireland finals is off the charts. You know, like the last 3 or 4 All-Ireland finals he's been just unbelievable after quiet semi-finals. And the worry then is, like, he's after being quiet enough, you know, this year so far. Is he going to just explode in the final? Cian Lynch is after coming back, you know, he was on and off the team, injuries, suddenly he was captain the last day, back to his best. So for Kilkenny to go well, like if you cast back to the league final, we thought we had a great chance that day as well, and they absolutely hammered us, like, really in the league final. So things will have to go well, but I think the first port of call will be they'll have to push up on puck outs and push up and go 15 on 15, and that's not the traditional 15 on 15. If Limerick go back with 8 or 10 in defence, I think we have to go up with them. We have to learn from Clare down below in the Gaelic grounds. Thought they were brilliant with their tactics, and they won that day, albeit be only a point or two in the end, but I think they showed the way to beat Limerick, and I think if they'll have to do that to get a chance.
One of the areas that everybody's talking about at the minute is obviously Declan Hannon. He didn't play in the semi-final. We saw Will O'Donoghue push to midfield that day. How big of a loss would Declan be if he doesn't play?
Yeah, well, it's like anything. Like when you have a great team, it's the loss isn't as major as it would be on a team with maybe, you know, only a couple of superstars. Like I remember when JJ Delaney got injured a week or two before 2006 All-Ireland final. It was like the end of the world, like, you know, and because JJ was, you know, absolutely our best defender ever, and up there with Henry, you know, and say TJ and DJ even, you know, for being the best players probably ever played for Kilkenny. And that Cork team was unbelievable, you know. 2004-05 they were going for the 3 in a row and they were the hottest of favourites, and we couldn't live with them in 04. We didn't even get to the final in 05, and now we were missing our, you know, 1 or 2 best players. And Brian Cody came in and it's just, listen, man, you know, he had huge respect for JJ, but like, man in, another lad comes back out, and I think that Limerick team were the very same. We seen it with Sean Finn is gone, Mike Casey comes in. We seen it last year with Cian Lynch, you know. So they're able to,
it's next man up, and that's the mentality that they have.
It's unbelievable, isn't it, the Limerick psyche, even the way they've adopted players like that. Even chatting to like Eamon Cregan yesterday, and he was talking about Declan Hannon even back in the day. I hadn't realised this, playing in, you know, Fitzgibbon finals and popping balls over the bar. I think he scored 110 or something in a final. Like, he's one of these players that just is adaptable to different positions, which is a big loss for a team like Limerick. And it's not just that, it's the leadership qualities he has. Yeah,
and he's able to, the lads are able to attack. Diarmaid Burns, even though he just goes up as far as maybe midfield, but he's shooting. And over on the other side you have Kyle Hayes. He's really up and down, so he can kind of do it, giving a free rein on that wing when they're playing down to the Davin. It's along the Cusack stand, you'll see him up and down. He could be anywhere, and Hannon, you see, gives them the ability to do that because he sits in the middle, the old school centre back. And you know, you don't need huge amount of pace, you just need to be able to read the game, and he's there for everybody. And you know, a few of the great defenders that we played with used to always say, you never defend on your own, you defend together. And Hannon is kind of that link man. Like, I think it was Peter Barry said it there years ago, that, and he was a centre back as well, and just going around, hovering around, tracking back, and that's what Hannon does as well. So albeit you'll see him going up and scoring, you'll see him distributing the ball, but he's a huge outlet for the other defenders, that they can attack, they can take the risk of going for a ball for the fear that if those go behind, Hannon is round covering. So he'll be a huge loss in that way. But they're probably, you know, it's probably player for player. As regards Will O'Donoghue, would be similar enough. He doesn't attack a whole lot. He's mostly going around defending and helping out with other players. So, you know, he's, I suppose, a good replacement.
You need sort of your best players firing on the biggest day. If you look at Aaron Galan and what form he's been in, it's unbelievable. It's probably Hugh Lawler going to pick him up.
Yeah, you'd imagine Hugh Lawler, and then, like, it depends on the whole match. You have Peter Casey, you have Seamie Flanagan, and you have Galan. So last year they put,
it's not bad,
no, it's all good.
No, where do you bring them all back and market for you? But I suppose last year, you know, they put, I'd say, young Tommy over on Flanagan. Mikey Butler went out because Peter Casey tends to travel around a bit, like Tony Kelly will say. So it seems that Mikey Butler picks up him. So if to go by last year, I'd say Hugh Lawler pick up Gillane. Hugh Lawler has the pace and he has the power in the air. What does Gillane, where does he get most of his scores? Tipping out to either corner, and usually out to the right hand corner where number 13 is usually back over the left shoulder, you know, on his left hand side over the bar. Well, Hugh Lawler has the pace to get out there, so you'd be hoping that he'd be able to track them runs. The other one which we've seen, that magical catch in the semi-final, like Daithí Burke, has anyone ever caught a ball hashing over Daithí Burke before? And he just came in like his unbelievable strength, but with his speed of thought and speed of feet, he was able to get in behind him at the last second. Like, no fullback ever really gets caught in front of his man, and especially Daithí Burke, but he was making so many runs that it's just what happened on the day. But I think Hugh Lawler will be able for the high ball. He's so tall as well, and he is brilliant in the air, like, and as you said, big players step up in big days. Like, how many All-Ireland finals have been decided in the past? Like, you go back to 95, Eamon Taff came on, scored a goal and went back off again. Like, they were about to take him off, I think, by all counts in 95. Next minute he scores the goal, and Clare win the All-Ireland. Like, Taggy in 06, Shamie Callanan for Tipperary in 16. Like, the All-Ireland final performances are huge. If one player can step up and just put in a magical performance, even Joe Canning wasn't an All-Ireland final, was an All-Ireland semi-final. We were looking at it last night, and some of his best moments, that pint he scored, like
against Tip,
to win it underneath the Cusack. Like, not many players can score that. It takes players, and they won the All-Ireland final. Was that one of the reasons? Of course it was. And you'd be hoping maybe go back to 2018 when Limerick won, Nicky Quaid's little dive and flick on Harnedy. And we're kind of hoping that maybe Old Murphy's, you know, they're saying it's one of the saves of the century.
Or Conor Fogerty's block in the first half.
Conor Fogerty's. Could that be? Could we look back maybe after victory on Sunday and say, this is where we won it?
The referee is going to be massively important, you'd imagine, in terms of letting the game flow. Fan Larkin name checked John Keenan yesterday. I think it's John's first time refereeing an Ireland hurling final, but by all accounts he is definitely a referee that lets the game flow. Shifty Lad, one of our regular commenters, has said this morning, lads, John Keenan is refereeing the hurling final on Sunday. He has to retire as he's in his 50s. Why? He's a very fit guy, always was, and a tough fella back in the day. Doesn't make any sense. Good Ochra man. As a county we're all proud of it too, seeing it's not a traditional hurling county. He wasn't a bad player himself, enjoy it, but that's going to be crucial, isn't it? The likes of Keenan is a referee who does let the game flow, so I'd expect a pretty good match for that reason as well.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, that he was a pretty good player himself. And I often find that, like, with the referees, if they play the game themselves, they can understand some of the tackles and some of the moves, that it doesn't look as bad as it has done on television. And Keenan definitely referees that, because if you have to go for the ball, like a slight little sidestep one way or the other, you're in bother. And that makes perfect sense if he was a good player, because he understands from the other side of the fence. These are guys, like, you have to understand, these are guys in All-Ireland final that have done everything their whole lives to play in this game. This is their dream. It's the dream of their brothers, their sisters, their families. He's proud as a Wicklow and Knocker man of John Keenan. The players, clubs are so proud of him. If that's their man, it's usually, that's our lad. That's what the way they would talk about him on match day. And so I think the great referees understand a player can make a mistake. To understand the difference in a player making a mistake and intentionally going out to do something is huge. And I find the great referees are able to make that decision on the day. And John Keenan is definitely one of them. And I was a little bit worried that when he got the final, that because he refereed such a great Munster final last year and didn't get a game after that, would he be worried the same thing would happen again? But I didn't realise this is his last game, so he can go off and he might get the whistle and throw it up.
True.
Which, by the way, is a ridiculous, if anyone from the G has any sense, like the fact that he has to retire at 50 because he's 50. Like, these referees should be based on the fitness test alone.
Absolutely.
Like, you could be the fittest 60-year-old compared to a lad in his 40s who can't run. You know, so I think it's farcical that John Keenan has to hang up the whistle. I'd love to hear his thoughts on it after the match even, but I know a couple of referees have a bone of contention with that. you mentioned like how important it is to the club this week, Tommy. Even I was down at St Patrick's in Limerick City yesterday, Grode Hegarty's club, just up the road from where Ger still lives, and like there's Grode Hegarty flags everywhere, and it's so specific to each player. But how does that feel when you're in All Ireland final week and you see your name on posters around Tullaroan or whatever it is, and you know that all the focus is on the game? I guess you're trying to distract yourself the whole week and think of anything but the match.
Yeah, like usually my All Ireland final preparation would be, if the game comes into your head, you might think about it for maybe a couple of minutes early in the week, a Monday or Tuesday, maybe who you're going to be marking on the day and what way you kind of plays, and you'd measure it up for because I always found it went on instinct anyway. What you were doing for the last year in training is what you usually did in match day, even if you came up with a new plan on the day. But you'd watch a player and see, but that would be early in the week, and after that the way I used to just do it is once, because as you said, it's grand keeping it out of your head, but then you see a flag or see your name somewhere. So what I used to let it do was just I wouldn't be afraid of it, as in say, oh damn, I need to stop looking at this. I let it in and out. That's the way I looked at it. I used to come in this way and out that way. It doesn't make any sense, but it worked for me. And it just stopped you getting nervous. You got that little flutter for the 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, but that allowed you to just get on with it. But it's just like if you watch Spider-Man or Batman, these guys with the these senses that just slow down everything. Well, All Ireland finals were like that. Like, you didn't need to pump yourself up for an All Ireland final, any final really, even if it was a blitz or a cup final at home in training or anything. If it was the name before it was final, you just became razor sharp. Your mind just suddenly you just became alive, and that's what I used to love about the finals, was that you prepared all year, and this was it then. But because you prepared for an All Ireland final, and like say you looked at Welsh Cup final, this is the be all and end all. You were prepared, and come final week, then it just went in the space of a second, like, and I always felt that an All Ireland final itself, like, while it was a 70-minute game, maybe 75-minute game, I always looked at it as about 15 minutes aside, because that's what I felt like. It just goes so fast.
You were kept busy as well with your book and your tickets and all the
parade
that used to go on with it. You used to tell me that.
Yeah, I had a diary and work, and Sunday, whatever it was usually the first Sunday in September. So if you asked me, Aisling or Shane asked me for a ticket, you went down in the book, and I didn't have to think about it after that. So in so many tickets then when they couldn't give out the tickets, and over to Mammy then, and she looked after the rest of it. So she was brilliant, took all the heat off of me, and getting the tickets wasn't really the hardest part. It was good tickets. So, like, you tell a lad
3:30 in the Hogan stand.
That's why for your months.
They don't take what they're given.
Jesus, it's all final. Just take whatever tickets.
You'd have to send them a warrant. But if you didn't send them the warrant and say, listen, and get your ticket, but I can't. If I could get you, tickets in the middle of the Hogan, I'll get them for you. But I can't decide that. And like, you tell a lad, here you are in the Upper Davin. The Upper Davin.
You're in Croke Park.
He's so disappointed, and I can understand it. I'm the same myself, and I was asking a cousin of mine played soccer there, and you'd be asking for tickets. Make sure it's a good ticket now. You tell us. So
you're that person.
I was that person, like, and it was brilliant.
Do you miss it all, Tommy?
Well, Edwina, my cousin Edwina works for KCLR, and another granddaughter of Hattie Grace, but great at her job, and we were at the opening of a house in Tullaroan there for people, and a few weeks ago, and she was just asking me that, did I miss it? And it's just, I didn't play in 10 years.
That's actually mad.
It's a long time, Yeah, 2013 was that, sub in 14 and 2013, so 10 years. So though I miss it, listen, I know I can't play really, so I don't miss. I'd love to be able to still play, but
so I've heard you're still decent enough at club level, I've heard from, so that's the word in the grapevine anyway down there. Finally, predictions, Tommy, how do you see the game going?
Well, I said it last night, so I'm not sure if anyone was listening last night, but we went for the double last year. We won the football, we bet New York in the final, and we got beaten in the hurling. So this year, unfortunately, Christy Welch and his troops, they did great again. They got to the final, but they were pipped by New York this year. So hopefully we'll win the hurling this year. So I'm going to go with the Cats
by a couple of points.
Yeah,
tight game. Tommy, listen, enjoy the match. Best of luck on Sunday.